Hello everybody and welcome to the Aquamarine Home blog. I am Alison Rentoul, the CEO and founder of Aquamarine Home, the place to find beautiful, ethical and sustainable coastal homewares. And I'm being joined today by the lovely Heather Rayside from a beautiful organisation called For Dignity. Hi Heather, thanks for joining us.
Hi Alison, it's really great to be here. Thank you for the time you're giving me.
Oh, my pleasure. So Heather, tell us a little bit about For Dignity. What products do you sell and provide to the market, and how did you go about setting up this beautiful organisation, and what are you achieving, what are you hoping to achieve with it?
Oh, okay. Well, we set up an online boutique store, and we were really looking for well-made, beautiful workmanship in products that women could enjoy in Australia.
Yeah.
And so our line is mainly jewellery and bags, fashion bags, and some homewares that we sell to the Australian people. But like yours, they have an ethical and a story behind them. So because we believe that style and story can go together, and you don't need to compromise either. And so that's one of the reasons we started For Dignity.
Oh yes, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think there's a little bit of a kind of myth somewhere along the way that the ethical products or sustainable products are somehow a little bit daggy.
Yes.
And yeah, so I'm really trying hard to break that stereotype as well, and show that ethical and beautiful sustainable products can also be really stylish. So yeah, is this one of your necklaces that you're wearing?
It is actually. It's one of our more popular from probably my generation, but it's actually made by an organisation in Asia that work to help getting women out of human trafficking, and they've set up an enterprise of jewellery making, and they just make beautiful jewellery, constantly updating their range. But they have employed over 130 women through the years that they've been working, and each piece is made beautifully by them. So yes, I love having to wear their jewellery because it's great jewellery.
Yeah, it's absolutely stunning. It's a really beautiful statement piece. So how long ago did you set up For Dignity?
Okay. Well, back in 2016, we launched the website, and then we've been growing and establishing ourselves since then. But before that, I came back from serving 8 years in Vietnam in health community development work. And I was sort of going, well, do I go back to my medical practice, which is what I'd worked in, the profession I'd worked in here in Australia, or do I do a bit different? And because I'd worked in development work there, had really tasted and seen what life was like for those that are the vulnerable and exploited, and we'd worked on the border between China and Vietnam, so we'd come across some situations where people had been trafficked across the border, and I just couldn't get that out of from under my skin. I had to do something here, and I just looked at the Australian public and with fresh eyes, and said, a bit like you, this ethical, sustainable, and conscious shopping was still had a little ilk of not being very stylish, and yet I wanted to see that Australian women in particular could buy beautiful gifts that were having a positive impact, and rather than having the negative impact that some of the mass-produced child labour type products that are available in the market, they can make a choice that they'd probably be happier to make. So I started back at that time, that was 2014, to just sort of collaborate with organisations that I'd known, having lived in Asia for 8 years. I'd known a number of people, and most of definitely the starting organisations that we started with were as a result of people I knew that had been there and been involved in some way, telling me about their story, what they were doing. We tested their products, I tested the market, and did all that background research for that year and a half before we actually launched.
Wow, that's amazing. So, so was it a difficult process or an enjoyable process? Like, how hard was it bringing it all to life?
It's look, with no training as a business person, it was a very growthful process of doing some training and going to courses that would help me learn how to manage a business, and yet at the same time I found it deeply rewarding, because it was something, as I said, I couldn't get out from under my skin and wanted to continue to contribute. So when we started to see funds flowing back into these organisations and them therefore being able to employ more people or do more outreaches, it was like deeply rewarding, despite all the long hours and the unknowns and all that type of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really what sort of like keeps you going and gets you jumping out of bed in the morning, isn't it? Having that really big why, about why you're doing this, and when you directly get to see the impact that you're making into these beautiful people's lives, I can imagine that that's a wonderful feeling as well. So who comes up with all of the product designs? Is it yourself, and you have a team of people that you work with?
Well, most of the organisations we started with have their own designers, and we are, I say we because very early in the piece I recognised that I had certain tastes and they would influence what we brought in, but I needed a broader selection base. So I gathered together some big-hearted women with expertise in that area, an interior designer, a merchandiser, and of various generations from in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and we just had a look together and started to select the best of the products these organisations were making for our Australian market. And our heart is, we're only getting there. Now I've got a graphic designer on the team as well, and we're getting there to look at actually self-designing with some of the smaller organisations that have the skill set of manufacturing, but maybe not the design concepts that would be suitable for us in Australia.
That's really interesting, because that's something that I've been looking at as well. Often when you find people that you really want to help and you really want to work with, the products that they're producing are not necessarily exactly what the market here would want to buy. So I'm finding it really interesting working with people on how can we tweak it, how can we change the colorways a little bit or the design to make it more palatable, I guess, for the market. Because ultimately what you want is for them to be able to sell more products, and so that you actually can make more impact. So that's right. And it's not just the Australian market then they can move into. It's I know that other Western markets have different, slightly different tastes, but if they're getting the quality up to standard and complying with, the labelling and what's necessary here, it actually flows over to those countries as well. And it actually, that's the hope, that it actually enables them to sell more abroad than just maybe the tourist market and the local market that they have access to. Yeah, absolutely. It gives them a much broader reach. So go ahead and show everyone some of your beautiful products, because there was one thing in particular that attracted my attention. I think when I found you on Instagram, that made me reach out to you. It was this beautiful.
This is
bag.
Alison's favourite, and I must say it's everyone's favourite, to be honest.
So gorgeous.
This is made by a beautiful organisation called Joyan, and they're based up in the northern Himalayas, and this is actually all cotton and fully lined, and it's the beautiful thing about this is that it's all handmade. So the cotton has been actually hand spun, and you can see the undulating nature of the cotton, and it's hand loom woven. Then they get big block prints and print out each colour onto the design, and then someone sews it up into a really good quality bag. I've had one for over 12 months, and look, it's looking like it as good as this. So I love this brand, and I love what they're doing. The stories, when I hear the stories about the people have always got beaming faces. They just I can see why they called it joy, and they obviously invest a lot into these people. But that's Alison's favourite, and you can see why, because I think she's a blue girl.
Yes.
The same company make also have a leather range, so they've taken their handmade fabric, but they also collaborate with a business that uses repurposed leather. So all the large leather goods companies, their offcuts, they take them, they design them into bags rather than it going into landfill, because that leather, that's where it would have been destined otherwise. So this is a little crossbody, which again, you know, it's fully lined with pockets and this beautiful high grain quality leather that smells great. I love the smell of leather. I'm not a vegan, so I can enjoy those fragrances, but I know that it's actually come from a product that would have otherwise just been buried in the ground. So they make a range of handbags and fashion bags, crossbodies, travel bags, and we find that they're very enjoyable, well-made and popular products. So they're Join. And another product that I enjoy, as you see, was my necklace, but is we have two organisations that are in East Asia working particularly in the red light district, because about 78% of trafficked people end up in the sex industry. So it is a very high trafficked area. And this organisation called Starfish Project, that's their little box.
Gorgeous.
And their logo, and they make these different pieces of jewellery. So this is actually a crystal or a druzy stone with it's 18 karat gold leaf around the edges as a pair of earrings. But we have their necklaces and different rings, little fashion dress rings, and they go from very feminine to quite contemporary type of jewellery. Again, it's usually plated metal or sterling silver, but it's all hypoallergenic. It's not made. It's either on stainless steel or brass, and they're the one I mentioned before that have been able to employ 130 different women. They put them through from the stages where they reach out to the women to a safe house, to counselling, to education, vocational training. And they've had women go on to become accountants and photographers and just, yes, yeah. So last two is a little on the homewares range, and I don't know if you like this being a coastal girl, Alison, but these are made of jute rope.
Gorgeous.
And bowls, and there are two different sizes there. Yep. But that piece of rope is a single strand that they've knotted in and out and round to form that basket. And their tagline is "Girls Not for Sale," which I think is a nice little pun on the design. But they're supporting women there through making from big mats that you put on the floor. And then the final one I'll show you is an organisation called Basha, and they're based in Bangladesh. And the woman that started them noticed all these women on the side of the train line wondering what they were doing, and obviously they were women that couldn't afford to feed their families. They were on their own, and they were very vulnerable to exploitation. So she started a collaboration with a not-for-profit that was helping reach out and care for these women, but she saw that the problem that can often happen is they may get the care, but their tail end, then they don't have a vocation to go into. So she started workshops, and they produce products where they're a tradition in that region is cantha stitching. So they get saris, either these are new saris, this one's a recycled sari, and they put layers of them together. This little blanket's got 6 layers of recycled saris, and it's so soft. The fibres have been softened up with all that use. Yep. And they put them together and sew that stitching in, and that gives the girls the work that they can do. But in the midst of that, they obviously give them education, and they provide education for their children. And those blankets, that range, that as soon as people touch them, they fall in love with them. They just like, oh, this is great for a throw on a bed or a couch, or add a pop of colour somewhere. And yet, since we've started working with this organisation, I think they had 3, now they've got 8 workshops across Bangladesh. So
that's wonderful.
That is wonderful. Now, I can't take the credit for all that increased workload, but we've been part of that story.
That is so wonderful. So are there other people like you that are working with them and taking their products to other parts of the world? Or
Yes, they're available in the USA and in Canada and in Singapore.
Wow.
I think in Singapore. I know it's Canada, definitely in the US.
Yeah. Oh, that's so fantastic. Wow. So what are your plans for the future with For Dignity? Like, if you could wave a magic wand, what would you do in terms of, expansion or growth?
Well, we've started to realise that we think that people really enjoy hearing the story along with the product. And so we've started to design what we're calling a girls' night for now, for better of a term, where we actually can go in and tell the stories behind the organisations, talk about trafficking, what is it, help educate people about what it is, because there's about 15,000 people in Australia that are trafficked, and that's what we know about, let alone worldwide. There's 46 million worldwide when you look at some reports. And so it's a big world issue, and in that is the slavery issue. So we want to talk about those issues with women, but not just tell them so they feel bad, but tell them so that they can feel empowered that their choices do make a difference and they can have a positive impact. We're not here to bring a bad news story, but a good news story about that these choices of what you put in your home can actually change things and change people's lives in some way. So that's what we're starting up. And, we bring the products, we bring the stories, and have a great night over some champagne or yummy cheese and wine or whatever people want to do, and share that story. So our vision is that story and the products will get into homes across Australia through that initiative.
Yeah. Oh, what a fantastic idea. So will you be starting these in Melbourne, because you're based in Melbourne?
Yes, we are starting, and we've run several pilots, and we're looking to take bookings coming up pre-Christmas, so early October.
Oh, wonderful. You must keep me posted about that, because I
will.
And definitely be able to share with all of our followers as well, like what you're doing, and see what it's like to come to. That's super cool. Well, thank you so much, Heather. It's been really lovely chatting with you, and so interesting to find out more about For Dignity and how it all started, and all the wonderful impacts that you're making with your absolutely gorgeous products. And if anybody's wondering, I am absolutely going to be stocking some of these products in the near future, so keep your eyes out for those, and watch this space. So Heather, where can people find you in the meantime? What's your website address? We'll put all of this in the blog article below as well, but just in case people want to look it up.
Sure. Our full range is available online, and the website is For Dignity, FORDIGNITY.com.au. And we also have a small range in Northcote at the Fair Trader in High Street.
Oh, lovely. Okay, that's great. And I assume you're on Instagram. Well, I know you're on Instagram because that's where I found you. And Facebook as well. So For Dignity.
Yeah, For Dignity AU.
Perfect. That is so great. Thank you so much once again, Heather. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you, and I can't wait to do more wonderful things together with you in the future.
That'll be great. Thank you, Alison. Thank you very much.
Have a wonderful day.
You too.